So, good evening, YouTube. Good to be back. It's been a while, and I do apologize for that. I don't know if I've been hit by the just mood of fall, slowing down. I hit a little bit of a creator's block, if I will, because this project has been at the forefront of what I want to get done, and I haven't been able to get it done. So I finally had a chance to sit down with the folks, my family that I wanted to interview, and this is the marriage video. This is the follow-up to the puppy love video. Fehu's state of mind is a personal journey that I want to share. It is a quest for wealth, but not monetary. My journey is leading me to happiness, experience, and knowledge to create a better me. Join me on my adventure and dare to create your own. I am Sean McDaniel, and this is Fehu's State of Mind. So, a little bit of background. I sat down, I came up with a couple questions, not anything too in-depth, but I just kind of wanted to get a feeling for some family members' take on marriage. And so I interviewed myself and my wife, Chloe. I interviewed my mom and dad, Rob and Debbie. I interviewed my grandparents, Jim and Jean. And I interviewed my brother, Connor, and his wife, Connor and Cassie. We've all been married for different lengths of time, and I think it showed an interesting view of marriage. As I said in my last video, I think that your puppy love days, your teenage days, prepare you for the person that you intend to marry. And I think that you build a view of what you want in a spouse, and I think that when you meet that special someone, I think that's why it's kind of like everyone says, it's just like, one of my questions was, how did you know you'd found the one? And everybody's answer is always the same, is I just knew. I think that's because we build up a profile, a kind of guideline of what we want out of a serious, committed relationship, and I think that translates into how we find the one. My wife and I often laugh about the fact that at any point in time, pieces of the puzzle could have been completely different, and who knows what would have happened. My wife, for instance, was a Navy kid, and had she not been in this area, I wouldn't have met her. I believe things happen for a reason. I'm a Christian, as I've said in several videos. I think there's a plan, and I think you are supposed to meet the person that you're supposed to meet. So I think that's how that happens. But it's interesting, because at any time we could essentially affect that choice, and we could use our free will, and that could really throw things out of whack, and you could meet a totally different person, and who knows what would happen. So without further ado, I'm going to start the interviews. So this is marriage as told by my mom and dad, my grandparents, myself and my wife, and my brother. I hope you like it.
Be 54 years the 29th of December.
34 years.
34 years.
In December.
Yep.
On December 21st.
Okay. So, 8 years?
8 years.
8 years. 9 this June.
Mm-hmm.
1 year.
Almost a year.
Oh my god. It is literally 20 days, it's like 22 days away.
Oh, well, we knew each other for 2 years, almost to the day when we were married. So we've known each other all total 56 years.
Awesome.
37 years total.
Awesome.
9 years? 10 years? Almost 10 years?
Actually, it is over 10 years because it was September,
September.
of 07. So,
I'm the one that's good at remembering dates.
8 years.
I was like, I guess it depends on what do you mean by know. Like, I knew of you, like, since, like, 5th grade. Which I don't want to do the math.
So,
But I've known you
since
for,
we were
like,
like 9.
10 years, maybe.
Longer than that. Because you knew me when I was 10. So, 13 years now.
I guess in my case, by the fact that I was able to find where she lived, and we met on a blind date, and I never paid no attention to where she lived when we went to pick her up, but I went right back there like a homing pigeon.
And I just always felt real comfortable with him. You know, some people you might date, you'd feel a little uncomfortable, but I always felt relaxed with him.
And that's the next question. Oh, no, that is this one.
How'd you know I was the one all them years ago?
Because you just, when I looked at you and talked to you, I knew it was you.
And you didn't call me.
That's because my mom threw the daggone phone number away.
Point of contention. Anyway.
When did you know you'd found the one?
Even though I thought he was the one, I knew I had found the one when I told him I was pregnant with you. We had been dating for about, how long? September to June. So about 9 months when I got pregnant with you. And I was pretty sure he was the one because he wanted to be there. He wanted to stay. He was all in.
Yep, I told you. I knew the night that I met you.
I think honestly it goes back to the answer before. It just, everything felt right. And you were all of the parts and pieces. You know, everything that I had seen that my dad did, and everything that I saw that my uncles did, and all of the important males in my life. I liked this and this relationship, and this relationship. It all kind of just pulled together into this.
And actually, to springboard off of the video about puppy love, for me, it's kind of the same thing. Parts and Pieces is a good reference for it, because for me it was like I took from elements from each person that I had dated previously and found the person who checked all the boxes. Not that other people weren't important, they checked the boxes, but as I grew and matured, the boxes there was more boxes to check, and you
I
know,
thought I filled all the boxes.
checked all the boxes. Well, I'm glad it was all the parts and pieces.
Well, our relationship was different. Like, we didn't just pop into it and like, oh, we love you, we like you. Like, our relationship kind of built. And then I'd say after like month 3, I knew I really, really, really liked Cassie. I don't know about her. It's probably longer than that.
I don't know. It's just like I knew when I knew. I don't know.
So like month 3 when you started dating?
Month 3, I knew I really liked her and probably loved her. But it wasn't something where we just, bam. It was something we built on, personally.
I don't know. I felt like I knew when I knew. I don't know. I don't know how or what exactly happened, but it's like I knew I loved you at a certain point.
Let's see.
When I found my way back to her in April.
And of course, we communicated a lot by way of the U.S. mail, back then. And I really got to know him really well through the mail and also through seeing him.
So y'all did something no one does today. Y'all wrote letters.
Wrote letters, actually.
Yes.
Pen and paper and stamps on it and all that. Yeah.
And a man actually took and picked it up and
And phone calls was few and far between because you had to pay toll on long distance phone calls
Yeah.
back then. So.
They were expensive.
Well, the first time we met, I didn't.
I did.
Not the first time.
I did.
Well, the way I knew I had found the one is because I felt comfortable with him on our first date. How'd you know I was the one all them years ago?
Honestly, everything felt right. And it's the funniest thing because you hear people say, oh, it just felt right. Oh, you'll just know. And you do. It doesn't make any sense. And it wasn't like a light switch or suddenly just I looked at him and I knew he was the one. It was just everything we did felt right. Everything was comfortable. Every conversation we had, everything, I knew I hadn't known you that long. I knew that it shouldn't be as comfortable as it was. But from day one, I was amazingly, amazingly comfortable with you.
Yeah.
And everything just fit.
yeah, the conversation was just really easy, which Chloe later told me that she wasn't a conversationalist. Whatever. Same for me though. It just fit as except for me like not being savvy enough to get your number the first night we met. But no, it did. It just kind of fit and happened, and I knew a lot way before Chloe did. When did I tell you I loved you? Is it Christmas?
Christmas.
It's when y'all left for Christmas that year. And totally terrified Chloe.
I said thank you.
I don't know. I don't know. I guess when you were the only one I wanted to like spend time with or do anything with, somebody I could tell everything to, be myself with.
Yeah, that's about the same. It wasn't. It just kind of happened, and I knew I loved her. So it hasn't changed. You're blushing.
not as long lasting. You know, maybe a month or two, and then we'd split up or whatever. But we managed to date for a couple of years, so I guess maybe that helped to determine.
I really don't know, other than the fact that it was just like you see in the cartoons, little went off over your head or something, and it didn't happen with anybody else.
Go.
Okay. Excuse me. When we met, I was working for the United States Navy, and my grandmother lived in North Carolina, so back then the holidays fell on the holidays. It wasn't all these Monday holidays like they have today, and Washington's birthday fell on a Thursday, so I took Friday off from work and took my mother down to visit my grandmother. Well, I had two cousins that were dating women or young girls, or however you want to call them, in this town that my wife was from. And they said, well, you're going to be here 5 days. Let's all get together and have a date. So I was reluctant at first, but they were supposed to set it up, and they did. And then, go.
I met one of the girls who was dating one of my husband's cousins in the little small downtown. And she said, you have anything to do tonight? I said, well, no, not really. Why? And she said, well, would you like to go out on a blind date? And I thought, I don't know about that. But anyway, I agreed, and I said, well, you know, if you can have me back home by 9 o'clock, because I don't know whether a blind date's such a good idea or not. So she said, well, really, he was supposed to have gone out with Linda Johnson, but she said she had to go out of town, so we asked you. So I said, okay, I'll go. And so we did go out. And we really enjoyed each other's company. And when he walked me to the door, I thought to myself, why in the world did I ever say have me back by 9? But anyway, it was a good date, and after that he started coming down. And yeah, for 2 years, from Portsmouth, Virginia, all the way down to that little small town in North Carolina.
Now, for clarification purposes, it's a 6-hour drive now to Red Springs, right? From around here?
If you do the speed limit, it's 5 hours.
Okay, so 5 hours. But that's not always the case, right?
No, and we didn't have it. In the whole 250-some mile trip, there was only 60 miles of interstate back then.
And how long did it take back then?
And it took about 6 hours, maybe 6.5, 7, depending on the traffic. Because I'd leave here on a Friday night and go in there for the weekend, and depending on how much traffic I hit, it could go into 7 hours.
But there were times that you were going a little fast.
Oh, I went fast a whole lot of times.
Sometimes he would be going so fast, my mother said he would go past our house and have to go down the road and turn around and come back.
I'd shoot past it. I couldn't slow down fast enough. And that Saturday night, my cousins, we all got together, and like they picked up the two girls they were dating, and she was the last one to pick up. And I never paid no mind to how to get there, because I didn't think I'd ever see her again, and it was just something I had to endure for a couple of hours, and then it'd be over with. So anyway, we pulled up to the house, and they had a big old white dog that looked like Old Yeller that'd like to eat me alive. And I got to the door. I went in the house, and this female come through the door from the kitchen, and I thought, well, this ain't gonna be so bad after all. And then I found out it was her older sister, so I'm back down there wondering, well, what am I getting? So when she come out, I was very well surprised, and we went out and had to get home at 9 o'clock. And we got her home at 9 o'clock. I walked her to the door. The blessed dog started after me again, and my cousins thought it was real funny. This dog was about to eat me alive. So they locked the doors of the car, and I'm standing out here like this, trying to kick this dog away from me. But 2 months later, we corresponded by mail, and 2 months later, like I say, I was just like a homing pigeon. I never paid no attention how to get to where she lived, but I went right there just like I lived there myself. and we dated in a 1958 gold Chevrolet Impala 2-door hardtop. And 6 people in a 58 Chevrolet 2-door hardtop was
It's cramped.
cramped, to say the least.
There was 4 of us in the back seat.
And I guess that's about it.
Awesome.
Well, with your dad, it was a whole lot more mature, as mature as you can be at 17.
Right.
But we did stuff like away from everybody, not just at the
We didn't
parents'
group
house.
date, and we didn't stay at the parents' house,
Yeah.
and all that other stuff that you do when you're normal teenagers.
Yeah.
So we actually went places to Richmond, Williamsburg.
Spent money, all your
spent money,
paycheck.
my whole paycheck every time.
Yeah, that was another difference. The parents weren't paying for us to do stuff. He was paying for us to do stuff. So, yeah.
Every relationship was different. Every relationship was. I think each relationship I was in kind of built off the one before to help me grow and develop. This was different though, because instead of me growing and developing, it was like a meshing of 2 people. This relationship was different because I felt like we were meeting in the same place. As in other relationships, maybe the guy was more ready than I was, or maybe I was more ready than the guy was. And here we were, 2 people, maybe not in the same place career-wise, but in the same place in our life, to be able to mesh completely and to kind of fill the requirements to the next step.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to my previous video. I'd always dated for my mate, and so every person I dated, I imagined that I could see myself moving to the next step and becoming married. And I didn't have a lot of serious relationships, like 3 or 4. I can't remember off the top of my head on the spot. But like, of course, there was the young relationships which were very not likely to happen. Connor and Cassie's case, they did. And then, as I moved up towards college, I had a serious relationship, but that didn't work out. And then throughout college, I didn't really worry about dating as much, or I didn't worry about a relationship because I knew I didn't have the money for a relationship. So I just kind of, and what you say about pieces falling together, when I met you, I had a job. I had a serious job. I had serious income coming in. And as soon as I started to feel that, in like October, November, after I met you in September, that I wanted to see this go further, I had the means to make it go further. I wasn't in a position where I couldn't pursue a serious relationship. So I think that was one of the biggest differences, honestly, is that it was just the other times were not the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't met the right person yet. So it all just fit together.
And emotionally, it was different too. It was a lot more
Serious?
There was a lot more common ground. You were both emotionally steady, but able to understand where I was coming from, and you were steadfast and fun.
Good with that.
Some of the guys were just kind of fun. Some of the guys were kind of steadfast, but not very amusing, and got a good blend. There were a couple of guys that were almost perfect. But you're right, not the right person, not the right time.
I don't know, like, we got into it, and then the first, 6 months passed, and then a year passed, and, I never stopped in that time frame. I never stopped loving Cass, and then we just built on that, and it continued. My love has just continued to grow over the years. and now we're up to year 8. So.
Well, it means family, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and it's like a bond, you know. We were bonded, I guess, before we were even had children, but the family helps to bond us even more.
It means sharing the good and the bad, the fights and the fighting in the mud and the blood and the beer, as the song goes. Sharing the good times and the bad times, and
Stand
just
together.
working your way through the bad times and turning the bad times into good times. And do you see the results of it 50-some years later when we look around and see our children and our grandchildren?
It's true. Yeah.
Awesome.
Marriage is, like I told you last night, it's a whole lot of that in sickness and in health, for richer, for poor, for better or worse. But it seems like it's the bad stuff that bonds you together, really. You appreciate the good stuff, but the bad stuff is the stuff that makes you strong. And
Yeah, you always being there. That's what marriage is about.
it's who's there when everybody else is like, oh, whatever.
Sounds good to me. And just for the record, Mom said it last night because, for some reason, the GoPro lost the footage from last night.
Marriage is a partnership, and it's two independent people working together. It's,
I think that's the important part too, though. It's complete people.
It's complete people.
So much of society says that your other half completes you, and I understand that your other half completes you.
and
I get what they mean, but I think that so often that's kind of misinterpreted, because it's not two half people coming together to make one couple. It's you have to come to it as a complete person.
Yeah, because you have to be able to support each other. You have to be able to, be two halves of a whole, but still be whole yourself, so that when the other half is lacking, you can hold them up and build them up until they can get that part back. It's like the gentleman, the advice that we got when we were married: you can't both be sick on the same day. One of you is sicker. You've got to, if one of you is flailing emotionally, the other one has to be emotionally strong until that person can get back on their feet again. And if one of you is, having a hard time at work, the other one's got to be stronger at work to hold the other person up. And it's a temporary thing, because you have to get both of each other back where you need to be. But it's a fluid thing.
Yeah.
It's back and forth between the both of you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I don't know. It's something that just kind of builds and changes with each year.
There has to be growth in marriage.
Marriage when we first got married was you and me learning to be you and me as one, as a true, like, just, not living with our parents or whatever, and then, adding a dog, a crazy cat, some awesome exchange students and kids of our own, taking the knocks as well as the good times, and learning from the knocks and hoping that the good times outweigh the knocks, I guess, right? I think that's what it is. And I think it constantly evolves. So, which is kind of what I've seen with the other people talking, and
That's cheating.
I know. Can't help it.
Is it cheating or using all your resources?
One and the same. Is that everything you think?
I think so.
All right, cool. And what is marriage to you?
Forever. I don't know. Like, no turning back. Like, this. No, I can sound like.
No turning back. That
No,
sounds
like that's the person you're gonna be with forever. Like,
sounds like you're getting ready to go in the dark forest
No.
in Germany or something. Marriage to me is that lifetime commitment. Like you're not. It's
you
not.
just said
like
it in a nicer way.
a
than I
relationship.
did.
A relationship comes and goes. Like you can say you can get into a dating relationship and you can be like, oh, I don't love you anymore, and just end it. Like marriage is that commitment to where if it's not working, you should try and make it work, or you should try if it's just something minor, then you should see if there's anything that you can do about yourself to fix it, or work together to fix.
Yeah.
It's not disposable, and that's what we're both trying to say.
Yeah, and then when you're married, you're not just marrying them for love. Like you're marrying them for like that's who you're gonna be with forever. Like, cause feelings change. I don't know. Like, but him as a person, he's a good guy. I don't know. He stable human being mostly. Like, anyway, yeah.
Stable human.
You are like.
It's generally a good thing.
I mean, like, you can't just get married because you're like passionately in love with someone, because
We can, but
it could also go down in flames passionately too. Like,
All right, so closing thoughts on marriage. I consider myself extremely lucky to have found the woman that I married, the woman that became the mother of my children, and her entire family. It's truly a blessing. I was blessed. I couldn't have asked for a better wife. That's just how I feel about it. I hope that if you're out there and you haven't found your intended yet, that you don't lose hope. I hope that if you are married, you remember to always rekindle love and always foster love. And if you're about to have kids, or if you already have kids, check out next week's video. My next week's video is going to be on the love that I have for kids. A short side note on addition to marriage, that'll kind of lead into my video on kids. When we had our second child in 2015, I nearly lost my wife, and that took me a while to heal from. I've seen hard things, I've seen bad things in my job, and nothing I've ever been through could prepare me for the emotions I went through at that moment. And unfortunately, my job and some of the things I've had to deal with made it that much harder, because I knew what was basically happening. As my wife laid there having her C-section, I was actually watching what I've seen other times with people passing away or dying, and I just thank the Lord that we had such a good medical team. My wife's medical team actually brought in 2 people because they knew it was going to be a complicated, or 2 whole medical teams, surgery teams, because they knew it was going to be a tough procedure and they knew it could go really bad. So I'm so blessed that they did that. But the feelings that I had at that moment when they took me out of that room were fear and anger and hurt and being broken. I happen to be more of a fight than a flight type person, so it made me angry and kind of scared me, because I was in such a raw state, and that's I tend to be a little bit of a controlled person when it comes to things about my life. So it was a whole different experience, and one I don't ever want to go through again. One I don't wish on anybody. And what I will tell you is, if you have been through something like that, especially if you're not part of the military and police community, there's a book called On Combat. It's by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. There's going to be a link in the bottom of this Amazon link. It is my associate page. If you are police and military and you've never read it, you need to read it. If you're not and you've been through traumatic experiences, something happening to a spouse, something happening to a kid, get this book, read it. The lessons in it apply about what your brain goes through in a critical incident, what your brain goes through in a post-traumatic sense. And post-traumatic stress disorder is not just, one event. It can be a buildup of events. So if you're hurting, or if you've ever been in a situation where you've experienced some type of trauma, ongoing trauma, anything, give it a look. Find you a copy, go to the library, check one out, buy it, do something, read the book. It will make a lot of things make sense, and it'll help you heal some. So that's my closing thoughts for this marriage series. I hope you'll join me for next week, some of my kids. It kind of starts out with a hard story, and it'll go from there on the love that you experience for a child. But as always, like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Let me know what you think about this video. Leave a comment. Leave your stories. Let me know. And if you have any ideas for something that's your idea of Fehu, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. You can also check out my website, fehustateofmind.com. There's a link in the bottom as well. And as always, this is my adventure. What will yours be? Thank you. Good night.